Lu Mingfei was so pathetic that no one believed he'd even make it through school. Yet, with a rare burst of courage, he confessed to his lifelong crush. But, as the loser our boy Mingfei was, she ended up with a rich kid instead. After all, Mingfei had nothing special. But trust me, this was the moment where Mingfei's life would take a sharp turn that even Jingwu also got jealous. Mingfei is always just a powerless, ugly, and hated by everyone, who has locked himself up in his little man cave like a basement goblin. His only joy came from spamming keys on his greasy keyboard. At least in the online world, this clown was a legend, one of the top players ever to touch the server. Right now, he was sweating bullets in a match against his only real friend, an online buddy who probably didn't even know Mingfei's real name. The dude was hammering the keyboard like his life depended on it, fingers moving faster than his GPA ever would. He somehow pulled a win, flexed in silence, and watched his friend log off. The victory felt hollow though, because once the server went dead, so did Mingfei's will to live. Out of boredom, he pulled up the profile of his online crush. Yes, a certified catfish he was actually in love with, and was about to drool all over his fungus-covered keyboard. Then, out of nowhere, he got a duel invite from a top-tier player named Nano. Mingfei didn't think twice. He instantly accepted, thinking this was just another victim for his sweaty gamer wrists. But the second the match started, his little ego got crushed. Nano's skill level wasn't just good, it was terrifying. The guy was so cracked that Mingfei had to stand up from his chair and start moving like he was in a tournament final. Then came the real humiliation. In the middle of the match, Nano slid into his DMs and typed out his next move before Mingfei even made it. And guess what? They were right. The match ended with Mingfei getting clapped so hard, his soul froze in his chair. He checked Nano's profile only to see it was blank. Mystery boss unlocked. Shaken, Mingfei rage quit and logged off. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the mask came off. The monster who wrecked him was actually Chen Motong, a high-ranking dragon slayer at Castle College, better known by her online alias, Nano. She was casually driving through the city with her friends when the topic of Mingfei came up. Apparently, the principal had his eyes on this useless shut-in, claiming he had the potential to be an S-rank student. Motong didn't buy it for a second, so she challenged him in-game just to see what the hype was about. After smacking him down, she got even more pissed when she learned he had already received a scholarship from the principal himself. Curious but annoyed, she logged into the Castle College AI system, IVA, to dig up Mingfei's entire sad life. The system revealed everything: no friends at school, zero presence in society, abandoned by his parents, and living with his aunt, uncle, and his dumbass cousin Mingzi, who all treated him like garbage. Mingfei's only joy in the real world was catfishing Mingzi online and pretending to date him as revenge. His family yelled at him daily, telling him to get a job or be doomed to live as a useless, broke loser forever. As if that wasn't pathetic enough, Eva revealed his dream job wasn't to be a hero, a scholar, or even a wizard. No, this man dreamed of being a newsstand worker, just so he could earn enough money to recharge his game account and keep no-lifing online. Motong's jaw hit the floor, and her friend almost swerved their car into a pole because the idea of this guy being S-rank worthy made no sense. Meanwhile, Mingfei got kicked out of the house to do grocery errands, and on the way he checked his mailbox. Inside was a letter and a weird device. The first letter? A rejection from an international university. Ouch. The second letter? An acceptance into Castle College, personally signed by Professor Guderian, who even offered to mentor him. Mingfei smacked himself in the face to see if he was dreaming. But no, it was real. He sprinted home with the news, only for his family to call it a scam. His aunt accused him of forging it, and his cousin Mingzi laughed in his face, saying there was no way a reject like him could enter Castle College, since it was a school for super-powered hybrids like the legendary Chu Zaihang, one of the strongest students alive. As they argued, Mingfei slipped into a daydream where Chu Zaihang himself flew in on a helicopter, bowed before him, and called him master. Then reality smacked him again, and the dream faded. He figured maybe his family was right, maybe this was all just some cruel prank. But just as he turned to walk away, the mysterious device from the letter started ringing. His aunt picked it up, only to hear that the caller wanted to interview Mingfei tomorrow about his Castle College acceptance. Everyone froze. Later that night, Mingfei told his online best friend about the situation. Unlike his toxic family, this friend was actually excited for him and gave him tips on how to present himself at the interview. For once, Mingfei felt a tiny spark of hope, not knowing this was just the beginning of his chaotic new life. The next day, Mingfei dragged his sorry self to the big city building for the interview. He was already sweating, but things got worse when he realized some of his old classmates were there too. Apparently, they all got the same acceptance letter. Among them was the final boss of his heart, his longtime crush, Chen Wenwen. Of course, the man instantly folded like a cheap chair. While waiting in line, he asked her how she ended up here, trying his best to sound cool but only managing small talk. He even gave her some awkward pep talk, telling her not to be nervous since she was already the perfect student back in high school. Wenwen smiled and thanked him, which was the biggest win he'd had in years. One by one, students were called in until it was finally Mingfei's turn. This fool had been rehearsing possible questions all night, like a nerd prepping for finals. But instead of asking him about his life, the examiner blindsided him with the dumbest question imaginable. Do you believe in aliens? Mingfei nearly fell out of the chair. He expected something basic, but instead got hit with Area 51 interview questions. Another interviewer told him flat out that his life story was irrelevant and that these bizarre questions mattered more. So Mingfei, being the clueless simp he was, answered seriously. He told them he did believe in aliens, claimed he stared at the night sky every evening like some lonely poet, and insisted the galaxy was too big not to have extraterrestrials. When it was over, he stood up, apologized to the examiners, and basically rage quit the interview, saying he must have come to the wrong college. Then he stormed out like the dumbass he was. But inside, things were not chill. A man stormed into the building and confronted the interviewers. This wasn't just anyone. It was the Professor Guderian himself. When he heard Mingfei bailed after just one question, he blew a fuse. He yelled at the interviewers for not begging the kid to stay and ordered them to call him back immediately. Even the interviewers were confused about why this random loser was so important. Meanwhile, Mingfei walked home sulking, only to run into Wenwen outside. She casually asked if he wanted to go to the graduation party together, and he immediately agreed like the hopeless romantic he was. In his head, he was already fantasizing about marrying her, settling in the city, and living happily ever after. Basically writing fan fiction about his own life. To him, Castle College didn't matter anymore, but when he got home, reality smacked him again. His aunt told him that Professor Guderian himself had called. Mingfei had apparently passed the interview and was officially enrolled in Castle College. The loser who had walked out on question 1 somehow still won. The next day, Mingfei went back to the building with his aunt, uncle, and dumb cousin Mingzi to meet Guderian in person. As expected, the aunt immediately turned into a gold digger, asking about money. The professor calmly explained that Mingfei's scholarship came with $36,000 a year deposited directly into his account and that he would live at the academy. The second she heard the number, the aunt switched sides instantly, begging him to accept the offer. Guderian then explained the real reason Mingfei was chosen. Apparently, this clown was carrying a rare 100-year-old talent within his soul. His family was confused, so the professor pulled out a letter written by Mingfei's parents. Turns out they hadn't abandoned him like he always believed. They were actually honorary students of Castle Academy. The letter revealed his mother's side of the story. She left him not because she didn't love him, but because of her bloodline. She had asked the principal to give her son a scholarship when the time came. Reading her words, Mingfei broke down. He rushed into the bathroom, tears dripping all over the paper. For once, the joke character had a serious moment. His mother's letter said she had always loved him and only wanted the best for him, even if she couldn't be there. The emotional breakdown was cut short, though, when Nano walked in and roasted him for crying in the girl's bathroom like a creep. Without mercy, she told him to stop embarrassing himself and escorted him back to the meeting like a babysitter dragging a child. When Mingfei returned to the meeting, Professor Guderian asked him what he thought about enrolling in Castle College. Instead of jumping at the chance of a lifetime, Mingfei said he needed more time to think. The man had just been handed a golden ticket to the most elite school in existence, and his response was basically, "Let me get back to you." Before the professor could even react, Nano decided to expose him on the spot. She casually announced that the real reason Mingfei was hesitating was because he had a pathetic little crush and didn't want to leave the girl behind. Mingfei almost choked on his own breath. How did she know about Chen Wenwen? For a second, he thought Nano was some stalker, but then she admitted she just guessed. Still, her words rattled him. Then Nano slipped up, saying something identical to what she said to him during that duel in the game. That's when the puzzle clicked in Mingfei's tiny brain. Motong was Nano all along, the same gamer girl who roasted him online like he was a bot. The humiliation doubled in real life. Later, Mingfei sulked on a rooftop, trying to figure out how this girl knew so much about his life. The dude even pulled out his phone, ready to confess his undying love to Chen Wenwen like some bargain bin rom-com protagonist. But before he could embarrass himself further, Nano appeared behind him like a horror movie jump scare. She explained that Eva, the AI system, could track him anywhere and that she was sent by Guderian to convince him one last time. Yet Mingfei, in all his stupidity, still refused. He told Nano he couldn't join Castle College because he loved Wenwen too much and had to confess before leaving. Bro was literally willing to throw away a future of money, power, and glory for a girl who didn't even look at him twice. Nano hit him with the brutal truth. Wenwen didn't like him, never had, and he was about to ruin his life chasing someone who couldn't care less. But Mingfei, being the clown he was, insisted he still had a chance since Wenwen agreed to go to the party with him. Nano tried to drill it into his thick skull. If he didn't join now, the chance might be gone forever. But his dumb heart wouldn't listen. The next day, he went out shopping with Wenwen to buy supplies for the graduation party. Nano confronted him again, warning him that the professor was leaving that night and his decision had to be made. Still, Mingfei rejected her advice, clinging to his fantasy of a dramatic love confession at the party. This guy then spent hours practicing in front of a mirror, rehearsing lines like some desperate soap opera character. And because he was broke, he picked random flowers out of the dirt to give to Wenwen. His grand romantic plan was literally poverty-level flower picking. When the party began, his so-called best friend, Zhao Menggu, handed him a suit, making him look slightly less pathetic. Mingfei walked toward the stage with his bouquet, ready to pour his heart out. But just as he was about to confess, Zhao Menggu pulled the ultimate betrayal. He strutted out with his own flowers and confessed to Wenwen first. And the final nail in the coffin? Wenwen accepted it. She admitted she liked Zhao Menggu too. It turned out both of them had been playing Mingfei like a fiddle. Zhao wasn't just a backstabbing clown. He'd set this up as a prank. And Wenwen, the girl Mingfei thought was his destiny, humiliated him in front of everyone by choosing Zhao right there on stage. Mingfei froze in silence, completely shattered. His closest friend betrayed him, his crush stomped on his heart, and his life crumbled in one public execution of emotions. The poor bastard stood there like a broken NPC, drowning in heartbreak and rejection. Just when Mingfei thought his humiliation couldn't get any worse, Na No made her entrance. She appeared in a jaw-dropping outfit so elegant that every classmate gasped like they were watching a celebrity walk a red carpet. She marched straight down the graduation steps with her squad of subordinates, clapped her hands, and instantly had the girls strip Mingfei out of his broke boy outfit and dress him like someone who actually mattered. For once, Mingfei didn't look like a rejected NPC from a side quest. He looked like he belonged in the main storyline. Nano then locked arms with him in front of everyone, making the crowd choke in shock. She turned to Wenwen and Zhao Menggu and roasted them with a smile, saying Mingfei had far more important things to do than waste time here. Zhao Menggu nearly exploded with jealousy, but Nano cut him down by declaring that this was the last time they'd ever see this version of Mingfei. She strutted out of the building with Mingfei on her arm, while he refused to look back at Wenwen, pulling the rare alpha move of not giving his ex-crush even a second glance. The two drove away until the car ran out of gas, forcing them to wait. Here, Na No dropped her guard and admitted she couldn't fail her mission of getting him to Castle Academy, but Mingfei, in an uncharacteristic moment of gratitude, thanked her for not giving up on him. He finally reconsidered and agreed to join. She immediately informed Eva, the school's AI, who greeted him for the first time. Eva dumped his stats, called him an S rank, and even handed him an official student ID. Na No then went full ceremony mode, placing an imaginary crown on his head and naming him the King of Castle College. Even though the man hadn't done a single thing yet, Mingfei was overwhelmed, looking like he just unlocked a cheat code. Na No warned him that people would kill or die for such a crown, just like they did for his parents. Then, in a shocking twist, she submitted herself to him, promising to serve as his personal subordinate and guide. Mingfei, who was usually bullied by everyone, almost cried from the upgrade and gladly accepted her as his first true ally. Eva saved all of Mingfei's info into the system, instantly alerting the entire student body that their new king had arrived. A few days later, Mingfei headed to the airport to actually travel to Castle College. Things immediately went sideways. When he asked for directions to the CC subway line, an officer looked at him like dirt and assumed he was a beggar, telling him to go to his embassy for free food and shelter. Mingfei was furious. He had just been crowned a king, and now people treated him like he was homeless. His day got worse when he tried to buy a burger with his last bit of money, only for the cashier to refuse service, insisting they didn't serve beggars. Actual beggars nearby even started waving at him like he was their long-lost brother. Right when Mingfei was about to lose it, a silver-haired student appeared. This was Finger von Frings, a professional freeloader who immediately asked to borrow money for a Coke. Mingfei, convinced it was a scam, refused. But then Finger spotted Mingfei's Castle College subway card and freaked out, pulling out his own identical card. Mingfei realized this clown was actually a fellow student. His disappointment turned into joy, and Finger still managed to scam some cash out of him. As they waited, Finger revealed his tragic backstory. He was infamous at Castle College, not for his greatness, but for failing classes so many times that he had been demoted from A rank all the way to F. He explained the insane transport system. High-rank students got priority rides while low ranks like him had to wait forever. He also described the college's mysterious location hidden deep in the mountains. After ranting, he fell asleep, and Mingfei, tired of existing, decided to nap too. That's when the weirdest dream yet hit him. Ming-Fei saw people fleeing with torches, leaping off cliffs in chaos, and then a small boy appeared, calling himself his brother. The boy warned him about Earth's impending apocalypse, then mocked him for staying kind despite being pathetic for so many years. Ming-Fei even tried to hand him money, but the kid rejected it, calling him a fool. Just as his soul crumbled, Ming-Fei woke up to find a strange man ringing a bell in the station. The man announced the train's arrival, but when Ming-Fei introduced himself, everything changed. The conductor lost his composure, thrilled that this was the long-awaited S-rank student. Finger lost it too, bragging that Ming-Fei's rank was equal to the principal's. The kicker? If Ming-Fei had swiped his card earlier, the train would have appeared immediately instead of wasting an entire day. Ming-Fei was ready to throw hands with fate itself. Finally, he swiped his card, and the entire airport transformed. Lights flared, a hidden passage opened, and the secret CC subway was revealed. As they descended, Finger kept hyping him up, saying this was exactly what an S-rank deserved. But Ming-Fei's nerves spiked when he saw zombie-like figures in the tunnels. Finger calmed him down, saying they were just actors playing background props. Then, the grand moment arrived. The train roared into the station, and Professor Guderian himself leapt out like a proud dad at a sports event. He embraced Ming-Fei warmly, declaring that they had all been waiting for him. On board, Ming-Fei was handed confidential paperwork to sign, officially sealing his insane new life at Castle College. After finally ditching Finger, Professor Guderian decided it was time to drop the bombshell. Castle College wasn't some Hogwarts knockoff. It was a dragon-slaying academy. Their real curriculum? Learning how to hunt, kill, and survive against creatures straight out of a fantasy nightmare. Ming-Fei immediately assumed the professor had lost his damn mind. To him, this sounded less like school and more like an anime convention fever dream. Before he could roast Guderian aloud, Ming-Fei slipped into another trance. That creepy boy from his dreams appeared again, confirming that dragons were real and weaving a story straight from ancient history. He explained that thousands of years ago, the first dragon ancestor, Nidhogg, the Black Dragon Emperor, was slain on his throne. His corpse, so massive it could double as real estate, was dumped on an icy mountain, marking the start of a new age. Humans threw wild celebrations over their victory, basically the first ever Ding Dong the Dragon's Dead party. When Ming-Fei asked if the boy had ties to dragons, the kid denied it like a shady politician. Back in reality, another man, Masashi Toyama, arrived with physical proof. They showed Ming-Fei a dragon scale and asked him to test its durability. Ming-Fei, unimpressed, called B, so they pulled out the ultimate trump card. A baby dragon found back in 1796, locked in a glass tube and dormant for centuries. Ming-Fei, curious but skeptical, stepped closer, and the damn thing opened its eyes. The dragon thrashed inside, trying to break free, then flopped back to sleep. Ming-Fei nearly soiled himself on the spot. Guderian theorized that Ming-Fei's bloodline was the trigger, meaning his very existence pissed off dragons. He added that thankfully they upgraded the container last year, or Ming-Fei would have been the reason for a mass extinction event. Eventually, they reached Castle College. Ming-Fei's jaw hit the floor at the sheer scale and beauty of the place. It looked less like a school and more like a billionaire's fortress. As they walked the grand hallways, Guderian explained how countless high-level dragons were still sleeping across China, making the country a hotspot for dragon research. Ming-Fei noticed the place looked deserted, so he asked where all the students were. Guderian suddenly froze, then panicked, telling Ming-Fei to duck. He had walked straight into Liberty Day, the school's most chaotic tradition, a full-blown war game between two rival factions. On one side was the Lionheart Society led by Chu Juhong, and on the other was the Student Union led by Caesar Gattuso. Students popped out of hiding spots with weapons like it was Fortnite live action. Guderian got shot mid-explanation and collapsed like a ragdoll. Ming-Fei was caught in the middle, watching in horror as the battlefield narrowed down to just the two leaders and their snipers. That's when things escalated. Na No, serving as the Student Union's sniper, took a hit. Seeing her drop triggered something dark inside Ming-Fei. The Dream Boy whispered again, urging him to punish everyone for their sins. Snapping into beast mode, Ming-Fei grabbed a rifle, stood up like Rambo, and landed a perfect headshot on the enemy sniper. Then, without hesitation, he gunned down both Caesar and Chu Juhong like he was speedrunning Call of Duty. Everyone froze, stunned by his accuracy, while Ming-Fei himself was horrified at what he'd just done. Before he could mentally collapse, alarms blared. Red Cross girls rushed in with syringes, injecting the dead students with antidotes that revived them instantly. Ming-Fei stood there dumbfounded while Professor Manstein arrived, grumbling about the outrageous cost of this nonsense. Ming-Fei nearly fainted again when Guderian, who had been shot earlier, suddenly sat up, alive and well. Thinking he was seeing a ghost, Ming-Fei almost screamed, but Guderian casually explained the bullet bullets were just sedatives mixed with fake blood. To prove it, the lunatic shot himself again and passed out right there. Manstein, pissed at the collateral damage, threatened to report everything to the principal. But when the call went through, the principal couldn't have cared less. He laughed it off, told the kids to enjoy themselves, promised the school would cover damages, and even apologized for not attending the chaos. The students cheered like this was a festival, while Ming-Fei wondered if he'd just enrolled in an insane asylum. Then came the biggest twist. The principal requested to speak directly with Ming-Fei. He warmly welcomed him, joking that it wasn't surprising an S-rank like him managed to knock out 2 A-rank leaders on his first day. Ming-Fei's stomach dropped, realizing he had just painted a massive target on his back. Manstein, sensing the danger, whispered for Ming-Fei to retreat to his dorm fast, because those angry students he humiliated weren't going to let it slide. Behind the scenes, the principal held a private conversation with a man named Mans. They discussed a grim incident from 8 years ago where students had been completely wiped out, emphasizing the harsh reality of dragon battles. Mans insisted they needed a prodigy to lead the next generation. While Caesar and Chu showed potential, they both agreed that Lu Ming-Fei might just be the wild card they'd been waiting for. While the higher-ups were busy plotting tomorrow's Hills operation, sending Ye Xiang and Aki underwater to avoid waking a sleeping dragon, Ming-Fei was dumped into his dorm life. To his horror, his new roommate was none other than Finger von Frings, the clown who lived off other people's wallets and whose only talent was failing. Finger wasted no time telling Ming-Fei that his win during Liberty Day had turned him into a prime target for both the Student Union and Lionheart Society. In short, half the school wanted to beat his ass. Trying to act like a tour guide, Finger dragged Ming-Fei around campus. He showed off all the fancy departments and then dropped the bomb about Yunling, mysterious powers unique to each person. He even bragged about Professor Manstein's dad, who kept a barrier up around the college using his Yonling powers like some kind of magical neighborhood watch. But before Ming-Fei could roast Finger for flexing about another man's dad, chaos broke out. A random student lost control of their Yanling and spawned a giant water monster. A teacher quickly shut it down, but the scare triggered another vision in Ming-Fei. He saw himself standing before a half-dead tree, ominous and creepy. Finger explained it was the World Tree, the spot where the Black Dragon Emperor got whooped, and now it stood as the symbol of the school. Professor Guderian barged in and dragged Ming-Fei back to the dorm, where he handed over his official student ID. He told Ming-Fei about the mandatory 3E test. Fail it and you're expelled. While Guderian claimed Ming-Fei's rank meant he'd be fine, the warning carried weight. To prep him, he pulled out an ancient music box containing the recorded roar of the Black Dragon Emperor himself, the Imperium Yonling. Other students would have freaked out, collapsed, or started screaming. Ming-Fei? He listened for 5 seconds and then promptly fell asleep. Zero reaction, zero resonance, just straight up napping like the audio was a lullaby. Finger, never one to miss a chance to humiliate someone, immediately blasted the news across the school network. Within minutes, everyone, including Zhu Hong and Caesar, knew the great S-rank student had flopped against the Imperium. Ming-Fei spiraled into panic about the 3E test, so Finger offered to help him cheat. Because obviously, if your roommate's life is on the line, the best plan is academic fraud. Meanwhile, Professors Guderian and Manstein were in the library panicking. Their research hinted Ming-Fei wasn't just weird, he might be descended from the White Dragon Emperor, the loser who once challenged Nidhogg and got clapped. The whole bloodline was supposed to be extinct, yet here was Ming-Fei snoring through dragon roars. Manstein wanted to dissect him like a lab rat, but Guderian refused, saying they'd only report it if Ming-Fei failed his test. That night, a shadowy figure hacked the school's AI Norma, making sure Ming-Fei would pass no matter what. And so came test day. Ming-Fei walked in, clutching Finger's cheat notes like they were holy scripture. The invigilators handed out blank sheets, explained the dragon recording would trigger visions, and then casually stepped out like this was an exam/haunted house hybrid. While most students treated it like a joke, Ming-Fei zoned out and entered yet another trance. The mysterious boy finally dropped his name, Lu Mingze, same as Ming-Fei's annoying cousin. He explained the visions came from Ming-Fei's heart and promised to shoulder his burdens, making the whole thing feel like a therapy session with jump scares. When Ming-Fei woke up, Nano told him he had basically slept through 2/3 of the exam. Luckily, he had already scribbled his answers, though he messed up and wrote 9 instead of 8. Nano smirked, saying it was fine. He'd passed. Back in the dorm, Finger congratulated him with fake enthusiasm and officially welcomed him to college life. But then his curiosity got the better of him. He peeked at Ming-Fei's course list and nearly fell over laughing when he saw Ming-Fei had picked Professor Manstein's alchemical mechanical design class. Finger warned him that Manstein had the worst reputation in the entire school for roasting students into tears. Then he casually dropped that the class had been canceled anyway because the lunatic professor had run off on a mission to chase an ancient dragon. dragon. Far from the chaos of Castle College, Professor Manstein, aka Professor I'd rather die than teach properly, was busy leading an expedition into a drowned city. Yesheng and Aki suited up like discount Aquaman and Ariel, diving deep into the ruins. Down there, Yesheng flexed his Void Snake Yunling powers to scout ahead, but just as things seemed calm, Manstein warned them that a magnitude 5 earthquake was about to hit. Because of course, the one day they go sightseeing underwater, the Earth decides to rage quit. The tremors smash their comms, leaving them cut off. Yesheng, acting like the only competent person alive, used his Void Snake powers to re-establish contact. Manstein reported back to the principal, explaining that the ruins might actually be a Dragon King's palace and they'd need a key to enter. The key turned out to be a baby with pure dragon blood. Yes, an actual baby. Some poor mother handed it over, warning them that this kid was their last shot. Manstein, with no hesitation, yeeted himself back into the water with the infant like it was a high-stakes babysitting job. At the Bronze City gates, he activated his Yonling, used the baby as the passcode, and unlocked the entrance. After giving Yesheng and Aki their instructions, he returned to the ship, leaving them to poke around while Norma scanned the city. Yesheng noticed the dangerously low oxygen levels, so Manstein told them to conserve every breath. Inside, they found a chamber with a giant bronze pillar, and Yesheng pulled the noble sacrifice card, telling Aki to save herself if things went south. Meanwhile, Aki got stuck with busy work, photographing statues for the ship. But when her heart rate spiked and she began losing consciousness, Yesheng rushed back to save her. He revealed he'd found a heavy artifact and even spotted what looked like a sleeping baby dragon. Things went from bad to worse when a statue literally started stalking Aki. Yesheng shot at it, which, combined with her earlier touch, activated the city's security system. The ruins twisted into a shifting death maze, and the baby dragon, sensing intruders, went full lockdown mode. They barely managed to flee through collapsing passages, desperately trying to reach the ship. Back at Castle College, alarms blared, summoning every A-rank and above student. Mingfei, of course, slipped into another vision. The mysterious boy showed up again, warning him about upcoming death and danger, but also dropping a cheat code for unlocking maps, like he was some cosmic game shark. Finger yanked him back to reality, but was promptly told by Nano that his useless F-rank self wasn't invited to this meeting. Finger sulked off like a kid rejected from recess. Inside the hall, the professors explained the emergency. Yesheng and Aki were trapped, oxygen running out, and the students needed to help decode dragon text to save them. Easy task, right? Except Caesar pointed out that decoding dragon text normally took 15 years, not 20 minutes. Still, the professors shoved the work on them. Mingfei sat down clueless, but then got an assist from Norma, who kindly reconfigured his computer into a gaming interface. He remembered the Dream Boy's cheat code, typed it in, and boom! The entire map cracked instantly. While the rest of the geniuses sweated over translations, Mingfei basically used Control-C, Control-V, and solved everything in seconds. The decoded map was sent straight to Yesheng and Aki, guiding them towards safety. Down in the ruins, Yesheng suggested letting the baby dragon look at the map, and sure enough, the kid pinpointed their only escape, straight down through the city's base. With only 3 minutes of oxygen left, Yesheng told Aki to save her strength. She tried to confess her feelings, but he shut her up with a kiss and a dramatic promise of survival. Cue anime romance cliché, underwater edition. Meanwhile, Professor Manstein realized they had royally screwed up. They'd only calculated oxygen for escaping the ruins, not for resurfacing. So he ordered lifeboats deployed and the ship to descend for pickup. At Castle College, everyone sat on edge waiting for updates, while Mingfei, who had just casually saved the day with cheat codes, still looked miserable. His online friend called, cheering him up and telling him to stay positive no matter how bad things got, which was ironic, considering Mingfei had basically just carried an entire operation by pressing one button. While Mingfei was still stumbling through his new campus life, Professor Manstein's expedition was turning into a horror movie out at sea. On the ship, rescuers scrambled to locate Yesheng and Aki, but before they could even plan, Aki popped up to the surface, clutching the artifact. She breathlessly revealed that Yesheng had sacrificed himself to save her. Tragic, right? Well, the tragedy lasted about 5 seconds because a shadowy creature lunged out of nowhere, yanked Aki back underwater, and sprayed blood across the waves like an opening scene from Jaws. That's when the monster revealed itself, a full-blown water dragon. It charged the ship, and Manstein whipped out his rifle, unloading bullets like Rambo. Spoiler, the dragon didn't care. Bullets bounced off like spitballs. The crew escalated to missiles, only for the beast to casually swallow them whole. When a crew member panicked that the warheads were still active inside the thing's stomach, Manstein snapped and ordered detonation. The sea erupted in a massive explosion, and for a brief, blissful second, everyone thought they'd won. But dragons don't play fair. The creature resurfaced angrier than ever, stabbing Manstein's assistant straight through the heart and dragging her down before anyone could blink. Manstein lost his mind, emptying his rifle into the water as the dragon circled the ship, making strange noises. noises. He translated for the terrified crew. Apparently, the dragon was mocking them for being useless. To make it worse, detonating the live missiles could have backfired flames right back at them. Just as panic peaked, someone spotted a nearby dam. Manstein ordered full throttle. They blasted toward it with the dragon snapping at their heels. The plan worked for a moment. They made it behind the dam, trapped the dragon between the gates, and detonated the bombs. The beast exploded into pieces, but fate wasn't done trolling them. One massive tooth flew through the air and impaled Manstein, killing him in the most unlucky, anime-ass way possible. Back at Castle College, students waited for news until the principal appeared on screen. He announced the operation's success, thanked everyone, and gave special recognition to Mingfei for cracking the map. The room erupted in applause, though Mingfei looked like he wanted to crawl under a desk. On the way back to the dorm, Chu Zihang approached him. Calm and confident, he invited Mingfei to join the Lionheart Society as his successor, saying he'd respect his choice if he went to the student union instead. Their conversation was cut short by tolling bells and white doves, the school's sign of mourning. Everyone bowed their heads as word spread of Manstein's death. In his final moments, Manstein had refused medical help, telling the principal it was pointless. He reported his discoveries about the Dragon City, asked that students be told he was on a new mission rather than dead, and made one last request: find Nano a proper mentor. The dragon base they'd uncovered was transported back to the college for further study. Meanwhile, Mingfei got an email invite to Caesar's dance party. Curious, he asked Finger who Caesar really was. Finger dropped the tea. Caesar was basically the golden boy heir of an absurdly wealthy family, carrying enough expectations to crush anyone else. Mingfei wanted to skip, whining about not having a suit or dance skills, but Finger insisted. His brilliant solution? Borrow clothes from the drama club. At the ball, the contrast was brutal. Caesar's event was pure elegance, rose petals, candlelight, and Caesar personally greeting Nano like a prince in a fairy tale. He even announced the ball was for her birthday, making everyone line up to wish her. Meanwhile, Mingfei and Finger stood around like broke extras, the only losers without dates. Finger managed to blend in with his dancing, but Mingfei turned the floor into a comedy show, stepping all over himself like his legs were on lag. Nano quietly urged Caesar to go easy on Mingfei, not wanting him pushed towards the Lionhearts. Caesar smirked and said he had his own approach. Mid-dance, he silenced the hall with a speech about loyalty and greatness, rallying the crowd to chant his name. Then, like the master manipulator he was, he put Mingfei on the spot, inviting him to join the student union. Mingfei stalled, asking for time, but Caesar pushed him to request a song and take the floor. That's when the blonde violinist girl from the 3E test stepped up. She put her violin aside, offered her hand, and guided Mingfei onto the floor. For once, instead of humiliating himself, Mingfei actually moved in rhythm, carried by her calm instructions. It was the first time anyone looked at him like he wasn't a total disaster. As Mingfei clumsily danced his way across the floor, the blonde violinist finally introduced herself as Zero. Under her guidance, he stopped looking like a fish flopping on stage and actually found his rhythm. Shockingly, the crowd applauded, giving him a rare taste of dignity. Overwhelmed, he slipped outside for some air. That's when Nano spotted him, waved him over, and he wished her a quiet, happy birthday. She explained she needed a break from her own party, blaming fatigue, and then casually asked him to drive her up to the mountaintop. Mingfei, still desperate to impress her, agreed on the spot. Meanwhile, the fairy tale dance ended abruptly when Norma dropped the bomb. The school was under attack. Potential Dragon Raja infiltrators had breached the gate. 13 outsiders had made it in, and their target was the dragon vase stored inside Alfheim Institute. With staff stretched thin, the professors had no choice but to toss the students into the fire. Caesar and Chu Zihang were ordered to defend the school. Students were armed with Frigga bullets, and preparations began for a bloodbath. While the others geared up, Mingfei zoned out mid-drive, slipping into another trance. This was the worst possible time to black out. He was behind the wheel on a mountain road, meaning one wrong twitch and both he and Nano would end up at the bottom. But Mingzhe, his creepy dream brother, appeared again, guiding him safely. He teased Mingfei, suggesting Nano's invitation to the mountains might mean she liked him. Mingfei panicked, insisting she was with Caesar and way out of his league. Mingzi laughed, dropping the truth bomb that Nano didn't love anyone. Then, just to rub it in, he gifted Mingfei another cheat code: show me the flowers. Back on campus, things got ugly. Only 6 intruders remained after initial clashes, but their captain still ordered the mission forward. Their goal was simple: grab the dragon vase. To track them, Manstein prepared to unleash his void snakes, but the school's barrier blocked him. He phoned his father, who casually agreed to disable it as an early birthday present, Father of the Year. Once the barrier dropped, the invader captain activated her shadow field Yanling, making her squad invisible as they advanced towards Caesar's position at Valhalla. Up on the mountaintop, Mingfei and Nano sat by a pond, and the mood turned heavy heavy. When Mingfei offered condolences for Yesheng and Aki, Nano admitted she had accepted their deaths, but then revealed another secret. Professor Manstein was gone too. The story about him being on a mission was just a cover to keep students calm. She explained that he had even told her beforehand this would be the sign of his death. Reflecting on her own mortality, she said if she died, she'd want them to announce she was off on a mission in Iceland, so people could move on. She then shared an old legend about fireflies guiding souls up waterfalls, leading them home. Mingfei, as usual, sat silently, probably too dense to realize she was bearing her soul. Back in the school, intruder number 13 went rogue, sneaking through a chimney into the abandoned wine cellar. Using a master key card, he unlocked a hidden door. Meanwhile, Caesar braced for his battle at Valhalla. Activating his Kamaitachi Yanling, he detected invisible enemies nearby. Ever the show-off, he radioed Chu Zihang, challenging him to a competition to see who could finish their enemies first. Zihang, being the serious type, dismissed the idea. Norma ordered a library evacuation where Zihang was stationed, forcing his assistant to leave him alone. At Valhalla, the intruder's stealth broke when their leader's phone rang. She revealed herself as Sakatoku Mai, Aki's younger sister. Caesar offered condolences, but she spat them back, saying she didn't care for Aki's choices. To add flair, she started a dramatic musical countdown, but Caesar wasn't here for theatrics. Before the music even ended, he shredded her squad like background extras. Mai then revealed the real strategy. She was only a distraction. The real threat was the deadpan girl, sent straight to confront Chu Zihang in the library. Their true objective was clear: take down the school's two strongest defenders, the armrest duo. At the library, Chu Zihang came face to face with the so-called deadpan girl. The professors monitoring the battle tensed up, noticing she had no weapons. That usually meant two things. Either she was weak, or so strong she didn't need any. Professor Guderian reminded them that Zihang's Yanling was classified top secret. When Zihang finally activated it, the entire area erupted into a blazing inferno. His royal blaze ability was so overpowered it looked like he was nuking the library. Now they understood why students had been evacuated, but the shock wasn't over. Deadpan Girl didn't flinch. She lit up the exact same royal blaze. Suddenly, Zihang wasn't fighting a weakling. He was staring at his own reflection with the same terrifying power. Meanwhile, Intruder 13 stumbled into one of Norma's AI personalities, Eva, down in the restricted tunnels. She explained the underwater route he was taking hadn't been used in 35 years, but since he had a clearance card, she couldn't stop him. Instead of panicking, the idiot celebrated when his employer upped the payment to $5 million. Too bad he was clumsy as hell. He slipped into a reservoir, lost his phone, and never received the last set of instructions. Still, he pressed forward, drawn by a creepy voice whispering, "Brother," through the water. Up on the mountain, Nano apologized to Mingfei for Caesar's behavior, explaining he was just pushing him to meet S-rank expectations. Then, she dropped the truth bomb. She was the one who invited him to the dance, not Caesar. She teased him about dancing with Zero, then, out of nowhere, asked him to join the student union. To ease his paranoia about being used as Caesar's pawn, Nano confessed she genuinely wanted to take care of him like a little brother. She even revealed her engagement to Caesar was nothing but a political setup between families. When Mingfei asked why she didn't help him during his embarrassing first dance, she admitted Caesar stopped her. Then she flipped the tables, joking that if he wanted to protect her, he should buy her presents. Their talk turned bittersweet as she mentioned receiving a mysterious birthday gift every year. Remembering Mingzi's cheat code, Mingfei muttered, "Show me the flowers." The car stereo blasted on and fireworks lit the sky, spelling, "Happy birthday, Nano." She broke down in tears, confessing the gifts were always from her late mother. Mingfei promised to be her little brother forever, and she hugged him tightly, swearing to always protect him. For once, Mingfei wasn't just a clown. He was a clown with timing. Back in the depths, 13 was being pulled along water currents until he stumbled into an underwater research institute. Researchers had gathered around the dragon vase, preserved under liquid nitrogen and guarded like it was the crown jewels. The principal warned against dissecting it, explaining that Professor Manstein had already cracked it by messing with mercury, and if Dragon King Norton woke up, it'd be doomsday. MRI scans showed 2 embryo cavities, but one was mysteriously empty. When a researcher insisted on cutting it open, the principal snapped, threatening him with a knife and forcing an evacuation. 13 slipped in afterward, tried to steal the vase, and instantly started hallucinating. A woman's voice kept calling him brother. Shaken, he bailed, dropping a mysterious bottle from his pocket in the process. He had no idea those were his final instructions, to pour the solution on the vase and extract the contents. Right after he left, a hooded stranger picked up the bottle, poured it over the vase, and added his own blood. Energy exploded through the chamber as he declared his blood, and the dragon now belonged to Nidhogg. Meanwhile, at the church, Caesar's duel with Sakatoku Mai heated up. He played the smug aristocrat card, offering her a challenge. Land 3 hits and she wins. Her first attempt failed against against his Kamatachi defense. Her second, using a hairpin to create a clone, was torn apart instantly. Her third was more elaborate, but Caesar still shredded it. Breaking the rules, Mai pulled a gun, but before she could pull the trigger, a distant child's whisper triggered an explosion inside the church. The fight ended in chaos. Caesar, cocky as ever, called it a tie. Mai, fuming, declared otherwise. Back at the crime scene, everyone was gawking at melted footprints on the floor and a hole burned clean through the wall. Mai, being dramatic as usual, pointed out that the temperature matched that of the sun. Caesar, for once, looked rattled. His Kamatachi hadn't detected a damn thing, even though he heard an elevator rumbling from the basement. He realized the truth. His power couldn't sense the intruder because the thing had no heartbeat. In other words, they weren't even fighting a person. Meanwhile, on the mountain road, Mingfei was freaking out about the car starting itself like it was auditioning for a Fast and Furious spin-off. Nono brushed him off and suggested they hurry back to the college. On the way, she checked Caesar's voicemail, where the invasion alert spilled out. Mingfei was ready to cry, but Nono, calm as ever, told him to relax. Caesar and Zihang would handle it. Spoiler, they were barely holding on. At school, professors watched Zihang and the deadpan girl clash like it was a pay-per-view boxing match. Their strength looked evenly matched, though one professor noticed something terrifying. The masked girl had better control. She wasn't even trying to win. She was stalling. Meanwhile, Intruder 13 tried the dumbest getaway ever, a bicycle. Professor Guderian ordered open fire, but somehow this clown dodged every shot until fate intervened. Mingfei crashed right into him. When 13 whipped out a knife, ready to stab, both froze as they recognized each other. It wasn't some stranger, it was Old Tang, Mingfei's old buddy. They quickly faked a hostage act so Tang could escape, but the plan went sideways when a mysterious boy landed on their car. He was wrapped in flames, carried a glowing shield, and called out "brother" like this was a family reunion from hell. Mingfei floored the gas, but not before catching the kid's fiery reflection in the mirror. The professors barked orders to keep the brat at range. Bullets? Melted on contact? Grenades? Useless. All they did was piss him off. The child unleashed royal blaze, creating a nuclear-sized explosion that cut off Zihang and the deadpan girl's duel instantly. They stopped fighting, realizing this walking furnace was the real threat. Deadpan girl confessed the kid had been accidentally released, and shockingly, Zihang agreed to trust her. In desperation, Professor Manstein called his father to reset the barrier, but Daddy dropped a brutal truth bomb. Barriers were useless. The kid wasn't just anyone. He was one of the first-generation dragons, the Dragon King of Bronze and Fire. Basically, game over. Mai reported the Dragon Boy's presence to her employer, who almost choked when she heard the description. An energy shield, steel furnace body, untouchable. After seeing the video, she confirmed the boy wasn't Norton as they feared, but his brother Constantine. Worse news, she had no idea how he'd been released. Constantine, meanwhile, was wandering the campus, crying for his brother like an apocalyptic lost child. Mingfei, Nono, and Old Tang hid behind pillars, debating survival. When asked his job, Tang admitted he was a hunter, but Nono clarified his organization chased ancient artifacts, not animals. Tang confessed he'd joined the group online, basically like applying for Amazon delivery, and got sent to steal the dragon vase without knowing it was Mingfei's school. When they saw the cracked vase photo, they put it together. Constantine had crawled out of it. Their hiding didn't last. Finger found them, screamed, and immediately sold them out like the coward he was. Constantine turned toward them, and the group ran for their lives. Caesar and Mai intercepted them mid-flight. Caesar's only concern was Nono's safety. He ordered her to hide at the swimming pool, and though she refused at first, she finally gave in. Mai, on the other hand, wasn't running. She swore to protect her squad. Just then, her employer called with the only good news of the night. Non-metal Frigga bullets could actually repel Constantine, though not kill him. Caesar and Mai locked and loaded, relaying the info to the professors. Their shots finally made Constantine stagger, and soon the guards and students followed suit, firing in unison. At first, Mingfei, Old Tang, and Finger somehow forgot they were being hunted by a dragon child and decided to mess around in the pool like idiots. But their fun ended the second they heard footsteps. They dove underwater, trying to hide, but Mingfei was instantly pulled into one of his weird visions. The pool turned blood red, steam rising off the surface like a cursed hot spring. He stumbled onto the shore, assuming it was another hallucination, only to be greeted by Constantine himself. Mingfei felt a strange familiarity, like he'd met this overcooked brat before. Constantine sniffed him like a lost puppy, radiating heat so intense it could roast marshmallows on the spot. Suddenly, the world shifted, revealing pyramids and fire. Mingfei realized he wasn't in Kansas anymore. This was the Bronze City, and Constantine was the same walking furnace tearing through his school. Just as Constantine got closer, Mingzi appeared out of nowhere, kicked him in the face, and told him to piss off. Mingfei woke up gasping by the pool, alone and disoriented. Then, the principal showed up like Batman on casual patrol. He dragged Mingfei to the Overwatch Tower and laid it all out. The Dragon Boy was cornered, but killing a Dragon King wasn't exactly child's play. The principal handed him a rare alchemic bullet, the only thing capable of ending Constantine. He revealed his Yanling ability, Time Zero, which could slow time itself, giving Mingfei the perfect chance to aim at the dragon's rolling eye. No pressure, right? He left Mingfei with some motivational pep talk, basically saying, "Don't screw this up, kid." Elsewhere, old Tang looked on edge. Finger called him out for almost ditching them in the pool. Worse, Tang admitted he also heard Constantine calling him brother. Before they could unpack that, Constantine stopped playing around and transformed into his full dragon form. The principal thanked the students for their efforts and stepped up personally. Activating Time Zero, he shattered the dragon's shield, exposing the weak point. All Mingfei had to do was shoot. Of course, Mingfei froze like a deer in headlights until Mingzhi appeared behind him, steadying his aim. Together, they fired. The principal ordered everyone to unload their ammo. But, in a shocking twist, the dragon didn't retaliate. It shielded old Tang instead. With its final breath, the dragon whispered, "Brother," and died. Tang, completely shaken, ran away. But memories hit him like a truck. He remembered Constantine, their promise to protect each other, and their dream to rule the world together. Reality slammed into him. He wasn't just old Tang, he was Constantine's twin, the Dragon King Norton. Grief and rage consumed him, and his true form erupted in a fiery transformation. Later, the principal and Manstein's father discussed the fallout. Why hadn't the principal executed Norton immediately? His answer was cold. Dragons couldn't truly be killed, only sealed. Even a single body part could regenerate them. That was why humans had always relied on sealing techniques. He revealed his hybrid bloodline had kept him alive for over a century, but he needed a successor. His mission was dragon genocide, wiping out not just the four kings, but Nidhogg himself. Norton's blind rage was just another tool in his grand plan, no matter how many humans got caught in the crossfire. The next day, Mingfei and Finger were still trying to process their near-death experience. Finger explained the executives were returning, security upgrades were underway, and even shared some tea about the secret party's history. When asked about his society choice, Mingfei admitted he joined the student union because of Nono. Finger smugly revealed he was already a member. Their chat got interrupted when a cranky old man delivered Mingfei's student union ID card. Turns out, Nono had already bet on him joining. He was told Caesar wanted to see him in an hour. Meanwhile, Caesar got his own meeting with the principal, who praised their efforts and dropped the next bombshell mission, an expedition to the Bronze City. He specifically requested Mingfei's participation, claiming his potential was too important to waste. Caesar accepted. Later, Mingfei was dragged into Caesar's office. The poor guy nearly fainted when he heard survival rates were basically trash, so he tried to weasel out with every excuse in the book. Caesar wasn't having it. He explained this was a massive honor. Only 2 freshmen were chosen, Mingfei and Zero. Zero had already agreed. Mingfei's cowardice started pissing him off, and he even threatened to revoke Mingfei's union ID. That's when Nono stepped in, promising to watch over him like a protective big sister. With no escape left, Mingfei reluctantly agreed. Caesar ended the meeting by announcing they had 2 months to prepare him for the mission of his life. The following 2 months turned into pure torture for Lu Mingfei. The guy went from couch potato to unwilling Navy SEAL in record time. Diving lessons, martial arts, endurance drills, hand-to-hand combat, stamina training, shooting practice, you name it, they shoved it down his throat. By the time the mission day arrived, Mingfei wasn't jacked or fearless. He was just nervous as hell, sweating in his gear like a chicken before slaughter. Finger, ever the useless bestie, tried to hype him up but ended up sharing gossip instead. He explained that couples weren't allowed to dive together. That's why Yiqing and Aki had hidden their relationship to sneak in as a pair. The realization hit Mingfei. Caesar and Nono wouldn't be able to dive together this time. He finally cracked, admitting he was scared out of his mind and might not come back alive. In a dramatic gesture, he handed Finger his credit card and told him to enjoy his fortune if he died. Finger wasted no time. He instantly started ordering food like he was at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Mingfei nearly fainted watching the balance drain in real time. But, to his surprise, Finger handed the card back and told him he'd make it back alive. That rare moment of loyalty gave Mingfei just enough confidence to keep moving. Meanwhile, Norton wasn't wasting time either. He summoned one of his servant dragons to prepare for the upcoming showdown. The mission, dubbed Operation Bronze, officially began as Mingfei, Nono, Caesar, and Zero boarded the ship. Professor Manstein welcomed them with a pep talk, flexing about their weapons like a kid showing off new toys. They had torpedoes, reinforced defenses, and even a shiny new Dragon Killer missile. Their objective was simple: infiltrate the Bronze City and blow it to pieces before Norton cocooned inside it. Mingfei, being his usual dumb self, asked why they couldn't just study the city. Manstein explained like he was talking to a toddler. They didn't have the tech to lift an entire damn city out of the water. Destroying it was the only option. Then came diving assignments. Caesar would pair with Zero, while Nono would go with Mingfei. But out of nowhere, Zero claimed she couldn't dive because she was on her period. Mingfei, being clueless, tried arguing it didn't matter, but Zero stood her ground. The responsibility fell to Mingfei and Nono, much to his despair. Nono patiently explained the diving suits and the consciousness line, a cable that would pull them back if they blacked out. Mingfei, of course, immediately worried about dragon attacks, but Manstein reassured him that dragons were all hibernating. Norton, specifically, had to cocoon before regaining his powers, so the odds of meeting one were slim. With everything set, Mingfei and Nono descended into the depths. They reached the massive ancient gate and Mingfei followed orders, pouring blood into a slot. But instead of a magic welcome, the damn gate bit him. His panicked screams echoed underwater until the gate finally let go. Nono swam over calmly, pointed out it was just a small bite, and told him to stop being dramatic. Mingfei looked at his hand. It was barely a scratch, but he still wrapped it up like he'd been mauled by a shark. The gate groaned open and a violent current dragged them into the Bronze City. Nono blacked out for a moment but woke up with Mingfei at her side in a strange hallway. She immediately asked Norma about air quality, and the AI confirmed it was breathable. To conserve oxygen, she made Mingfei ditch his breathing gear. They reported back to Manstein, who confirmed their hunch. Norton's return had reactivated the city's systems. When Nono asked where to place the bombs, Manstein directed them to the Dragon King's palace. To navigate the labyrinth, he ordered Mingfei to release a special dye into the water and follow the current. As they followed the trail of dye deeper into the Bronze City, Mingfei's cowardice was on full display. Every time he passed a creepy statue, he muttered about how terrifying it looked. Nono rolled her eyes and roasted him, flat out calling him a coward. To distract him, she shared the grim history behind those statues. Long ago, a tribe had marched into the city with offerings, crops, livestock, and even a gorgeous maiden, hoping to lure out the Dragon King. But Norton, the ungrateful bastard, never showed up. Their sacrifices were for nothing, and their bloodlines ended in misery. The dye stopped flowing near the same giant pillar where Yisheng and Aki had once reached. That's when Mingfei, desperate to finish, suggested they just slap the bomb there and call it a day. Nono shut him down instantly. Her sharp instincts told her this wasn't the true palace. And before Mingfei could argue, she tricked him into putting his oxygen mask back on, then shoved him into the water. Savage. When Manstein asked for updates, Nono lied about poor visibility. Moments later, the pair got dragged into another sector of the city, one littered with the skeletons of warriors who had once challenged Norton. It was basically a graveyard of losers. Nono seized the chance and grabbed Mingfei's injured hand, using his blood to open a hidden gate beneath them. It worked, but the victory came with a heavy price. They lost contact with the ship and their consciousness line. Panic instantly set in for Mingfei, but Nono kept calm, reminding him they could reconnect later. The two stumbled into a shabby house where Nono entered a trance and uncovered its dark past. This wasn't just any house. It was Norton and Constantine's original palace, still echoing with their shared memories. Impressed, Mingfei listened as Nono revealed that she had once profiled him when he first joined the college. She admitted that her protectiveness came from guilt, since she had expected him to quit in a few days. Nono then set their bombs timer for 45 minutes, but their relief vanished when they spotted a freshly lit lamp. Someone, likely Norton, was here. They bolted, only to discover their consciousness line had been stolen. Meanwhile, the city started collapsing around them. Racing back toward their entry point, they reached another gate. Before facing it, they had a rare moment of honesty. Then Mingfei confessed he never wrote a farewell note because he was sure he'd return alive. Nono, more vulnerable than ever, admitted she hadn't written one either because she thought nobody would care if she died. Mingfei brought up Caesar, but Nono dismissed him coldly, saying he'd move on easily. With no more words left, Mingfei sliced his hand again, activating the gate with his blood. On the ship, Manstein grimly concluded the pair was likely dead. Caesar snapped, demanding a rescue dive, but Manstein reminded him their mission wasn't about saving lovebirds, it was about nuking a Dragon King. Underground, things hit rock bottom when Mingfei and Nono found themselves at a dead end. Nono admitted that only a miracle could save them now, and just when Mingfei was about to completely break down, he remembered Liu Mingzei's cheat code. Desperately, he activated it. To his shock, Liu Mingzei's voice answered, relieved to hear his call. Then, out of nowhere, Finger's voice also entered his mind. Mingfei, half panicked, begged Finger to check the Bronze City map and guide them, but his desperate plea triggered chaos above. On the ship, Professor Manstein suddenly clutched his head in agony. To everyone's horror, they realized his brain was being used as the signal relay for Mingfei's improvised communication system. Time was slipping through their fingers, literally, because Finger was busy fumbling with the Bronze City map like an F-tier rookie. His low access rank made everything crawl, and Caesar was seconds away from choking him out as Professor Manstein's brain fried from being used as a Wi-Fi router. Then, Finger remembered the cheat code of his own life, Eva. One of Norma's AI personalities slid into his system like a guardian angel, promising to bring Mingfei home alive. With unrestricted access finally unlocked, Finger tore through the map like a hacker on steroids, plotting the escape path for Mingfei and Nono. But above the water, things were going to hell. Zero dropped the bombshell that the water temperature had suddenly spiked to 50 degrees. Classic dragon weather manipulation. Manstein was down for the count, drooling in pain from the psychic strain, so Zero nudged Caesar into command. Caesar, being the smug mafia prince he was, took control like he'd been waiting for this moment since birth, barking crisp orders to the student union crew. Their celebration didn't last. The lower deck shook violently as a dragon smashed into the ship, obliterating the torpedo bay. At first, they thought it was Norton himself, but the sonar showed nothing. Then, Zero noticed something terrifying through her scope. It wasn't Norton. It was his loyal servant dragon, Samson, hunting them like a shark that hadn't eaten in weeks. The ship barely held together as Samson shredded the water around them. But then, just as suddenly, Samson abandoned the chase because Norton had appeared on a distant hill. The entire crew froze. Norton leapt into the water, face to face with his servant. Everyone expected some master and pet reunion, but instead, Norton casually thanked Samson, then murdered him on the spot. Zero's jaw practically hit the scope. The betrayal made no sense until the water erupted in a catastrophic energy blast. From the chaos emerged a new abomination. Norton fused with Samson's body. It was a grotesque power shortcut, allowing Norton to bypass the cocoon transformation entirely. The bastard had just speedrun dragon evolution. Zero, still watching through her sniper lens, realized the awful truth. Norton's fusion meant less time for them, more power for him. Orders came in crystal clear. Norton must die at all costs. But no matter what happened, Liu Mingfei's survival was priority number one. Meanwhile, down in the drowned city, Nono and Mingfei were sprinting through corridors as Finger's directions lit their way out. Their hearts sank when they stumbled across Yisheng's body, still clutching a book meant for the ship. He had given up his oxygen mask to save Aki. Mingfei wanted to keep running, but Nono forced him to stop for a moment, whispering a farewell to Yisheng before dragging him onward. The path stretched endlessly, and Mingfei's nerves finally broke. He admitted to Nono that he didn't think he'd ever make it back alive. Nono herself began doubting Finger's calculations, and panic clawed at both of them. That's when Mingfei's subconscious finally punched him in the face. He found himself face to face with a harsher, more honest version of himself. This inner Mingfei roasted him without mercy, calling him pathetic for always waiting on others to save him. It told him bluntly, man the hell up or die like a coward. The brutal pep talk lit a fire in Mingfei's soul. For once, he stood tall and refused to collapse. At the exit gate, the final obstacle loomed. The door demanded dragon blood to open, and Mingfei fumbled like an idiot, failing to cut his own hand with a knife. As a massive slab began to descend, threatening to crush them, Nono strained every muscle to hold it back. She screamed at him to hurry, but Mingfei finally ditched the knife, tore off his gas mask, and bit into his own finger like a feral dog. His blood hit the mechanism. The gate burst open and the water sucked them through, but Mingfei blacked out instantly. On the ship, even in his dazed state, Professor Manstein muttered a final warning about Mingfei and Nono's oxygen running out. Caesar ignored his half-dead rambling and focused on survival, ordering the crew to move the ship while Norton's fused form gave chase. With no time to waste, the crew deployed the rescue bell into the ocean, praying Mingfei and Nono would reach it before the Dragon King reached them. Underwater, Mingfei was already halfway to death's door. His unconscious mind tormented him with visions of everyone he knew roasting him for being useless. Just when it looked like he was about to give up, Nono delivered the ultimate CPR move, a savage slap across his face. He snapped awake to her brutal honesty. He had ripped off his mask to bite his finger earlier, lost his entire oxygen supply, and now they were forced to share her half-empty tank. In short, they were screwed. As Mingfei panicked, fate threw them a bone. A helicopter suddenly buzzed overhead and Chu Zihang came over the radio announcing backup. Caesar's crew breathed easier, but Mingfei nearly cried in relief. In a crazy act of selflessness, Nono stripped out of her diving suit and shoved it onto Mingfei, saying she'd survive with her own diving skills. Mingfei didn't know whether to thank her or beg her not to die, but before he could speak, the water erupted in explosions that released poison gas. The mission had just gone from nightmare to hell mode. Meanwhile, topside Caesar and his team were trying not to die against Norton. When Chu Zihang arrived offering support, Caesar's face twisted like someone just offered him salad instead of steak. Zero instantly called him out, saying extra help was better than none, but Caesar shrugged. Fire versus fire wouldn't work. Chu's royal blaze was basically useless against Norton's inferno-level power. Things got worse when the pilot announced that their engines were failing and the ship couldn't fly. Their only hope of survival was the watertight compartments keeping them afloat. But Caesar wasn't ready to roll over. He learned they still had torpedoes and quickly cooked up a suicidal plan. They'd need to close within 100 meters of Norton, far too close for comfort, but the torpedo would hit with airplane-level speed, packing a punch even Norton couldn't shrug off. Caesar decided he'd personally distract the Dragon while Zero fired the shot. Zero warned him that the sound of the torpedo launch was like standing next to a rocket booster. His eardrums would get shredded in his heightened state. Caesar just smirked and pulled a blindfold over his eyes, tuning his senses into pure sound. The battle ignited. Caesar sprayed rifle fire at Norton, every bullet getting swatted aside like gnats. But that was the whole point. Zero's plan was to piss off the Dragon until it stopped thinking straight. And it worked. Norton's fury focused entirely on Caesar. Seizing the opportunity, Chu Zihong blasted his royal blaze to add pressure, but Norton met it with equal force, creating a blinding explosion that lit up the battlefield. Everyone was blinded, except Caesar. In that split second, he tore off his blindfold and shouted for Zero to launch. She obeyed, and the torpedo roared forward like a metal meteor. Caesar, in his adrenaline high, forgot to cover his ears. The blast rang through the battlefield, and the torpedo drilled straight into Norton's chest. With a roar of pain, he crashed into the water, stunned and sinking. Chu Zihong reported his helicopter too damaged to keep fighting and pulled back. For now, the impossible had happened. Norton was down, but victory came at a price. Caesar's ears bled from the launch, and Zero had to sign to him because he couldn't hear. In a rare tender moment, Caesar signed back smoothly, proving he was fluent. He admitted he learned sign language for his mother, who was deaf, and Zero revealed she picked it up to survive loneliness. The two shared a high five, a bittersweet win sealed in blood and broken eardrums. While they celebrated, their minds stayed on Mingfei and Nono, still underwater fighting for every breath. Against all odds, the pair finally spotted the diving bell. Nono, who had been holding her breath like a damn dolphin, signaled Mingfei to share the respirator. He greedily sucked down oxygen like it was the sweetest air of his life, relief flooding his face. For the first time in hours, he dared to believe they might actually survive this nightmare. Just when it seemed like Mingfei and Nono were finally safe, fate decided to spit in their faces. Nono calmly verified her fingerprint on the diving bell's panel and shoved Mingfei inside, treating him like fragile cargo. But before she could step in herself, Norton, the oversized lizard everyone thought was down for the count, came back like a horror movie jump scare and straight up impaled her. Mingfei froze in shock, looking like a broken NPC who forgot his script, as the girl who'd carried him this far bled right in front of him. In her last moments, Nono didn't whine or panic. Instead, she used every ounce of strength left to slam the bell shut, sealing Mingfei inside and guaranteeing his safety while she stayed behind to die. Inside, Mingfei broke down. Every memory of her, the times she protected him, scolded him, carried his useless ass through life, hit like a sledgehammer. He realized he wasn't just losing a comrade, he was losing the one person who made him believe he wasn't a complete failure. His sobs filled the bell as he realized she was gone. And worse, he was watching her death through the very barrier she gave her life to close. Then, just when his grief was about to drown him, Mingfei slipped into another vision. He found himself on a raft drifting through some eerie dreamscape. And there was Liu Mingzhe, his so-called cousin or demon brother, appearing because Mingfei's heartbreak was basically calling him out. At first, Mingfei pushed him away, but the moment Mingzhe mentioned the possibility of saving Nono, Mingfei's ears perked up like a dog hearing food hit the bowl. Before offering help, Mingzhe dug deeper, asking why Mingfei even chose Cassell College in the first place. Mingfei cracked open his soul, admitting he only wanted to look promising for his parents, that he'd been faking it his whole life, always leaning on others. And when it came to Nono, he admitted she meant everything, the only one who kept him moving. Mingzhe's response was brutal. He said she only supported Mingfei out of pity. That broke him further, tears flooding as he begged for her life. Finally, Mingzhe put the cards on the table. He'd save Nono and give Mingfei the power to fight Norton, but at a cost. Every time Mingfei used one of his cheat code powers, he'd lose a quarter of his life. 4 uses, and his soul was Mingzhe's property. Mingfei didn't even hesitate. For Nono, he signed that cursed contract with 0 questions asked. Even Mingzhe was shocked, smirking that love had made him a perfect fool walking straight into his trap. Back in reality, Mingfei's body snapped awake. New Yanling power coursed through him, and he immediately moved to save Nono. He healed her wounds, secured an oxygen mask to her face, strapped her in, and sent her up in the diving bell. Above the surface, Caesar's crew saw the signal and scrambled to pull her out, medics waiting on standby. Nono lived, but Mingfei's soul had just been pawned like cheap jewelry. With her gone, Mingzhe prepped him for the real showdown with Norton. Mingfei doubted if this power was enough, but Mingzhe revealed a key detail. The box recovered from Yisheng's body was the secret weapon. Ironically, it contained 7 deadly tools Norton had crafted himself, weapons sharp enough to kill their creator. Before Mingfei could use them, Mingzhe advised the smartest first move: silence Norton. If the dragon couldn't speak, he couldn't unleash his deadliest techniques. Mingfei summoned the ancient box, its ominous glow spilling open. From the 7 options, he grabbed 2 weapons, one purple, one yellow. Mingzhe took one look and scoffed, saying Mingfei managed to pick the weakest of the bunch. But at this point, weak or not, those weapons would have to do. The fight for everything was about to begin. Lu Mingfei went in swinging like a man who had nothing left to lose. The moment he charged at Norton, the weapons in his hands shifted, glowing with their true forms. His first strike landed surprisingly well, tearing into part of Norton's mouth. For once, Mingfei actually looked like he knew what he was doing. But, of course, reality slapped him fast. Fighting underwater with no balance turned his moves into flailing more than slashing. The Dragon King wasn't even breaking a sweat. That's when Mingzi stepped in like a gamer activating cheats, stabilizing Mingfei's footing and giving him real freedom of movement in the water. Suddenly, Mingfei wasn't just a drowning rookie, he was a pissed-off warrior channeling his rage into every swing. The battle escalated, a mortal with ancient weapons going toe-to-toe against their very creator. Above, the ship rattled violently, the crew realizing with horror that Norton wasn't just alive but locked in a death match with their hopeless freshman. Norton retreated into the abyss, regrouping. Mingfei, for a brief moment, felt sadness creeping in, thinking about who would even cry if he died here. Mingzhe yanked him back into the vision realm for a pep talk, reminding him that dragons never get tired. If Mingfei wanted a chance at victory, it had to be now. Then Mingzi dropped the bomb. The spell blocking Norton's Yanling was fading, and Norton's only weak spot was that human-looking body perched on the dragon's head. Fueled by this revelation, Mingfei activated his Yanling. His senses went into overdrive, overwhelming at first, until Mingzhe fused his own power with him, giving him the clarity to pinpoint Norton's hiding place. Mingfei struck hard, carving into the dragon's form. It wasn't enough, so he aimed for the body on top, but just as he was about to land the decisive blow, he froze. That body wasn't just Norton. It was Old Tang, his friend, the guy who had stood by him when everyone else treated him like trash. That hesitation cost him. Norton lunged, grabbing Mingfei by the throat and squeezing the life out of him. Typical Mingfei, always soft at the worst possible time. Mingzi, clearly done with his sentimental nonsense, shoved a deadly dagger into his hand. With no other choice, Mingfei drove it into Norton's body. The Dragon King's form began hardening, turning to stone as Mingfei floated upward, crying uncontrollably. Memories of Old Tang hit him like waves. The betrayal, the friendship, the cruel truth that he had killed someone he once called brother. On the ship, the focus was on Nono. The doctor confirmed her vitals were stable, and when she finally opened her eyes, the entire crew broke into cheers. Caesar looked like a proud dad, and for a moment, joy drowned out the chaos. But Zero noticed the obvious. Mingfei was missing. She spotted him drifting in the distance, broken and exhausted, and immediately dove in to drag his sorry ass back to safety. Meanwhile, Mai, who had been quietly waiting in the shadows for her moment, contacted her employer with coal deficiency. She reported that Liu Mingfei had survived as expected. Then her eyes locked on Norton, the once mighty Dragon King now reduced to a half-stone husk, still trying to crawl away. She didn't hesitate. With a calm precision, she raised her rifle, chambered with a special alchemic bullet, and ended him in a single clean shot. Norton's reign ended not in glory, but in silence. Mission complete. Mai reported her success and casually tossed the rifle aside like yesterday's trash. Back on the ship, word finally reached Zero. Chu Zihang wasn't dead, just chilling at the nearest airport, alive and recovering. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Liu Mingfei was busy sipping tea with the principal, like a nervous kid at a parent-teacher meeting. The old man hit him with praise bombs. Turns out Mingfei had scored perfect marks in both written and practical exams. A historic moment for the school. The guy looked like he just unlocked God mode in academics. But hold up, the principal wasn't done. He slapped reality back in Mingfei's face, telling him to write a thesis. Yeah, homework after nearly dying. Classic. The topic? The twin dragon kings made by the Black Dragon Emperor Nidhogg. And apparently, this scaly maniac created 4 pairs, 8 dragon kings total. Because why stop at 1 when you can make a whole damn Pokemon team? They even turned human to understand emotions, like dragons were auditioning for a daytime soap opera. Then came the plot twist. The principal pulled out an old photo, a young Old Tang chilling with friends. Turns out this guy was actually a dragon king in disguise, who once had parents, lost them, then went full Batman mode funding orphanages with his wealth. Noble, right? Except the principal dropped the bomb that even if Constantine hadn't died, Old Tang would have eventually revealed himself as Dragon King Norton and gone full Godzilla on humanity anyway. Mingfei, curious as ever, asked why dragons were still a secret. The principal basically said, because people would freak out, society would collapse, and nobody wants dragons trending on Twitter. Then came a letter from Mingfei's parents, congratulating him on not dying and looking forward to his graduation at 22. It was so heartfelt the poor guy almost cried into his tea. The principal, though, was dying to hear about the encounter with Norton, and especially why Nono survived like some kind of plot armor goddess. Mingfei, remembering Mingzai's warning, zipped his lips. The principal let it slide. Back at the dorms, Mingfei was ready to strangle Finger for posting his heroics online without asking. Before things got violent, Caesar barged in asking for salt like Gordon Ramsay's apprentice. Finger casually spilled the tea about the new room arrangements. Caesar and Chu Zihang now shared a room across the hall, while Nono and Zihang's assistant had moved next door. Cue Nono walking in with chocolate like the queen she was. She thanked Mingfei for saving her life underwater, saying his promise to protect her snapped her back to consciousness, though the details were fuzzy. Finger bolted out for his share of chocolate like his life depended on it. Then a package arrived, a brand new phone, courtesy of Mingzi, because apparently using Vision Land was so last season. The guy wanted easier communication, and probably to keep tabs on Mingfei like a helicopter parent. Finally, in the principal's office, the man reviewed Mingfei's 3E test papers and found a drawing. Mingfei sitting by a window with Mingzi. He recognized Mingzai instantly, then burned the drawing like it was cursed, before welcoming Mingfei officially back to the academy. Because nothing says welcome back like setting your art on fire. And that's where today's video ends, leaving our viewers hungry for more. So don't worry, because the next season of this anime will come soon on this channel. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell for future updates, and don't forget to leave your thoughts about anything on the comment box below. So goodbye for now, sagas.